for the parking is $10 and $9 if you have a senior citizen with you.
Hey, what's up guys? We are here by Interstate 80 going eastward. We're currently in Donner Memorial State Park, which is dedicated to the Donner Party who made the dangerous trek here during the 1840s to reach the Golden Coast of California. The party is famous for cannibalism, but today it's considered a memorial to the pioneers.
The Donner Memorial State Park Visitor Center contains exhibits about the cultural history of the area. There is also an exhibit dedicated to the Washoe people, the nature, the railroad, the Donner Party, and the Highway 80. Now let's talk about the Donner Party. In the 1830s, travelers who had gone west to California were talking about its wonders and opportunities. By 1845, they were also drawn west by the news that it was possible to travel directly overland to California. In Illinois, farmers George and Jacob Donner and cabinet maker James Reed packed up 9 ox-drawn wagons in April 1846, and they headed west with their families. When the wagon train reached a fork in the trail, the immigrants split into 2 groups. The Donner, Breen, Murphy, Eddy, Graves, and Kisseberg families chose an alternate route instead of the traditional one. Recommended in The Emigrant's Guide to Oregon and California, a book written in 1845 by Ohio attorney Dansford W. Hastings. The shortcut was said to have saved 300 miles, 30 to 60 days of travel. Unfortunately, Hastings had never taken nor ever seen the shortcut. He had doubted until 1846 when he returned to California to map it. Taking Hastings' alternate route, the Donner wagons straddled their way down a narrow, dangerous canyon in Utah's Wasatch Mountains, clearing a 36-mile path that cost them 3 weeks. When they finally emerged, the families had to walk across 80 miles of the Great Salt Lake Desert, where they were forced to abandon vital supplies and livestock. Frustration and deprivation brought discord among the group. James Reed was sent away from the party for knifing a man in an argument. Traveling with one companion, Reed barely made it to Sutter's Fort in Sacramento. His family was left to press on with the rest of the group. In late October, the Donner group arrived in Truckee Meadows, near today's Reno, Nevada. Here, they ran into Charles Stanton, returning to the party from a supply trip to Sacramento. Stanton told George Donner that the way ahead will be extremely difficult. The exhausted group chose to rest and gather strength, a 6-day delay that would prove fateful and fatal. When they continued on their journey, the Donner family itself never made it to Truckee Lake. They camped about 5 miles at Alder Creek. When the other families got to the lake, snow was on the ground. Members of the group attempted 3 times to cross the pass, with no success. So they settled close to the lake. Near the museum is the Pioneer Monument and the Donner Party's Murphy family cabin site. This giant pioneer memorial was built near the cabin sites. The stone pedestal stands at 22 feet high. During the winter of 1846, it was at the same depth as the Donner Party's snow. Schallenberger cabin site. Near this spot stood a small cabin built by 18-year-old Moses Schallenberger and 2 other men. They were members of the Stephen Townsend Murphy Party of 1844, the first pioneers to take wagons over the Sierra Nevada, opening the Truckee route of the California Trail. The three men had volunteered to remain behind and guard 6 of the wagons left here by the main party. Due to extreme weather conditions, the three men agreed to separate. The 2 older men rejoined the wagon party, but due to his weakened physical condition, Moses remained at the cabin. The young man survived for nearly 3 months alone during the winter of 1844-45 before being rescued. His cabin would later provide shelter for the Breen family, members of the Donner Party. We followed the trail down to the other cabin, the Donner Murphy cabin site. We were greeted by an enormous rock where the Donner Party members' names are listed on. The snowbound party settled in for the winter, erecting tents and building makeshift cabins of pine logs covered with hides. Dirt floors and poorly constructed flat roofs that leak when it rained. No windows or doors, only large holes to allow entry. Of the 60 people at Truckee Lake, 19 were men over 18, 12 were women, and 29 were children, 6 of whom were toddlers or younger. Attempts to hunt and fish were not successful. Families with any provisions were reluctant to share what little they had. Life at Truckee Lake was miserable. The cabins were cramped and filthy, and it snowed so much that people were unable to go outdoors for days. In December 15, members of the party, including Charles Stanton, tried in desperation to reach Sutter's Fort. They barely have enough rations for 6 days. Stanton became snowblind a few days out. To avoid holding up the others, he remained behind, saying that he would follow shortly. His remains were found in that location the following year. Those who marched on was lost. After 2 more days without food, Patrick Dolan proposed that one of them should volunteer to die in order to feed the others. Some suggested a duel, while another account describes an attempt to create a lottery to choose a member to sacrifice. Eddie suggested that they just keep moving until someone simply fell. And a blizzard suddenly came that forced the group to halt. Antonio, the animal handler, was the first to die. Franklin Graves was the next casualty. As the blizzard progressed, Patrick Dolan began to rant deliriously, stripped off his clothes and ran into the woods. He returned shortly afterwards and died a few hours later. Not long after, Lemuel Murphy died. Eddie, Salvador, and Luis refused to eat. The next morning, the group stripped the muscle and organs from the bodies of Antonio, Dolan, Graves, and Murphy and dried it to store for days ahead, taking care to ensure that nobody would have to eat his or her relatives. After 3 days' rest, they set off again, searching for the trail. Eddie eventually succumbed to his hunger and ate human flesh, but that was soon gone. They began to take apart their snowshoes to eat the oxhide webbing and discussed killing Luis and Salvador for food. Eddie warned the 2 men and they quietly left. Jay Fosdick died during the night, leaving only 7 members of the party. Eddie and Mary Graves left to hunt, but when they returned with deer meat, Fosdick's body had already been cut apart for food. After 25 days since they had left Rocky Lake, they came across Salvador and Luis, who had not eaten for about 9 days and were close to death. William Foster shot the pair, believing that their flesh was the group's last hope of avoiding imminent death from starvation. On January 12, the group stumbled into a Miwok camp looking so deteriorated that the camp's inhabitants initially fled. The Miwoks gave them what they had to eat: acorns, grass, and pine nuts. After a few days, Eddie continued on with the help of a Miwok to a ranch in a small farming community at the edge of the Sacramento Valley. A hurriedly assembled rescue party found the other 6 survivors on January 17. Their journey from Truckee Lake had taken 33 days. On February 18, the 7-man rescue party scaled the pass. All the cabins were buried in snow. Sodden oxhide roofs had begun to rot and the smell was overpowering. At the departure of the party a few months ago, 2/3 of the immigrants left at Truckee Lake were children. They caught and ate mice that strayed into their cabins. Many of the people at Truckee Lake were soon weakened and spent most of their time in bed. By the time the rescue party came, 13 people at the camps were dead, and their bodies had been loosely buried in snow near the cabin roofs, while some of the immigrants seemed emotionally unstable. The site turned into a Memorial State Park and first visitor center. Charles F. McGlashan gave 1 acre of land to the native sons of the Golden West in 1909. A land for memorial to the donor party. Joe V. Snyder was the Grand President of the Native Sons of the Golden West. He visited the monument in 1919 and reported that repairs were needed along with a fence and a caretaker. Theodore Clements Walbrook leased the acre land in 1920 to protect it. He paid $1 per year in rent for a 25-year lease. He built his Pioneer Lodge on the land, providing food, drinks, and souvenir stand. Souvenirs included vials of wood splinters and chips of porcelain from the donor party's Murphy cabin. The Pioneer Monument was erected in honor of all who made the difficult trek across the western plains and mountains to reach California during the 1840s. Work on the monument constructed near the site of the cabins that gave shelter to the donor party began in 1901. June 6, 1918, a ceremony that included donor party survivors, the native sons of the Golden West donated the completed monument and 11 surrounding acres to the state of California. In 1928, the memorial was given to the state by the native sons of the Golden West, and it became the new state park, which grew to 11 acres. Pioneer Lodge became the park's first headquarters, and by 1962, the new Immigrant Trail Museum replaced the Pioneer Lodge. So guys, that's it for the first part of the Donner Party and the history of Donner Memorial State Park.
Don't miss the second part when we go visit the exact site where the Donner family stayed during their trip across the Sierra Nevada. Until next time, bye!
So guys, if you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and feel free to comment.
Hit the bell, hit the bell, hit the bell, hit the bell. Come on guys, hit the bell for notifications. And don't forget to share.
And like.